All right, so one of the first questions to answer when developing a way to receive things is how objects will be transmitted to you. That will depend on many factors. Are the objects physical or digital? Um, how big are they? How important is security to you? How important is speed, whether an overall process or just at that moment of receipt? How important is cost? Do you have a lot of money to spend? Do you have to spend a lot of money? Do you have to make do with a shoestring budget? What kind of equipment do you have for receiving the items? Now, as I mentioned previously, there are digital objects that can be treated like physical objects. If you're collecting the archives of an author who wrote in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, there will likely be laptops, external hard drives, burned CDs, floppy disks, and other digital media. The fact that they're digital doesn't matter. Your primary concern is the receipt of those objects in the most original condition possible. So in that case, you would ship them just like any other physical collection object. But other workflows require that you create a more digital pipeline, and I'm going to focus on those. So for example, you could work with a vendor to digitize physical objects in your collection. How did those files get sent back to you? Or maybe you're working with oral historians that are out in the field, and each one of a team wants to all send files to you individually. How does that work? Well, there are two common options here. Number one, you could place those files on a physical piece of media and ship it to you and then read them. Here you see an example of three extremely large RAIDs, large storage devices that can be shipped in the mail and plugged in within 5 minutes of receiving them. They're used by Amazon to ship data to the cloud when the internet's not fast enough. You could also use a network transfer. You could ship things digitally. They are digital files, so why get a piece of physical equipment? But in both cases, you have to define the parameters of exactly how you're using those mechanisms, both the services or the tools that you're using and how you're using those services and tools. Another thing to point out though is that, again, unlike physical collections, we deal with copies. So when you're shipping digital collections, you always want to have that protection of copies. A good receipt process will say that the submitter holds on to a copy of their file until you have confirmed that you have a good copy. That way, if something does happen, you can always just send it again. So you have that nice little insurance mechanism as long as both of you are clear that that exists. Finally, OAS recommends that you standardize your receipt method. I keep saying this, standardize it, choose, do those kinds of things. But that doesn't mean you're choosing just one. You're probably going to end up needing to support multiple methods, different kinds of devices, different network services, etc. The most important thing is that you are choosing and not just saying anything goes. So you're limiting the amount of possible variations that you have on your services.